Hello and welcome back to the Space Salvi Institute podcast. I'm Andrew Petiprin, talking as always with my good friend, founder of the Space Salvi Institute, Bobby Mixa. Bobby, how are you?
I'm doing well, Andrew. How you doing? It's cold here in Krakow.
Yeah, I bet it is. You've moved to a cold place, and you have to live with it, don't you?
Yeah, I don't mind though. It's not as bad as Chicago.
Yeah. I just last night I watched the new Ridley Scott movie Napoleon, and they were stuck in Russia, and his generals recommended they go back to the more temperate climate of Poland to wait out the winter, and Napoleon didn't listen. He didn't listen. He got himself in big trouble. So I was thinking of you actually when I heard this advice to go to Poland so that you're not so cold.
Yeah, the temperate climate, right?
Indeed. Indeed. Well, today we have a special show. We have a guest, and our guest is Konrad Milewski, who is Polish-born but lives in the United States of America. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can see that Konrad has a patriotic painting behind his head, and maybe he'll tell us about that. But Konrad is the author of a book that we want to discuss today, among other things. And the book is called Escape from the American Cage: How to Regain Life, Liberty, and Happiness and Gain Truth, Dignity, and Love. Konrad, how are you?
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me at your podcast. So yeah, welcome, gentlemen. Yeah, welcome. Greetings from Kansas. I'm in Kansas, in the middle of the United States. Oh yes,
Kansas is a great place. I'm in Texas, so we're kind of in the same line of I don't know what they call it in geography, but we're in the same general part of the world. And Bobby, of course, is in Poland. So let's get into it. Let's start with this open-ended question. Konrad, you love America. Why?
Well, that's a wonderful question, really. Yes, there is a lot of elements. There is a lot of elements. When you come from Europe, Poland, you can see so much different environment. Yeah, you can be amazed. And I think I was, and I'm still is amazed about many, many things. And I can list some of those. I try to have a balanced view, trying to look into the, environment and how the people behave, if there is a general joyfulness or happiness in people. And that's probably my first reaction, how, looking into the people's eyes and hearts and how they feel, how they operate in this environment. But yes, I can subscribe or sign off the statement that you said. Yes, I'm impressed, and there is a lot of love for America. So yeah, we can go into some details if you want, and then of course we will bridge it and balance this whole picture later on to also make other listeners aware of what I'm discovering here, being Polish, what's different, and maybe need some discussions, yes, or maybe improvements.
Yeah, Konrad, I was in, maybe kind of going back. I know that you, growing up in Poland, I'm sure you must have had a great, perhaps great love for, or maybe your introduction to America was in a way through Ronald Reagan. I was in Warsaw over the weekend, and it was a snowy morning, very cold, but I liked it. And I decided to go take a long walk to the Warsaw Stock Exchange. And I passed by the U.S. Embassy, and right there with a layer of snow on his head was Ronald Reagan, the statue of Ronald Reagan. So, most people in Poland, when they hear Ronald Reagan, just like Michał Łuczewski's father said, they'll say, Reagan is okay. Reagan, okay.
Yeah.
So, do you have any? I don't know if growing up, you had any appreciation for Reagan and that connection between Poland and America. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah. Yes, I have. So let's start with history. I think this is important, and it's a good context for all the other discussions, and then I will list probably whole aspects of what I love. But let's start with the history. And Ronald Reagan, but even before that, when I look into myself and the closest family and Poles, we recognize, I think, much more common topics with America. And I think it's dated, to my sense, it's dated to, I would say, Tadeusz Kościuszko. I don't know if this name resonates in Americans, probably not so much like in Poles, which is, for me, it's a huge symbolism. You might remember Poland was partitioned. I think it was like 1772 it started, 1795 it just finished. So we just disappeared from the map. Now, look at this coincidence. So 1772, first uprisings and then fights for the, let's say, keeping independence. And then you have this person, Tadeusz Kościuszko and others, and they were fighting there. They are losing, and they immediately go to America to fight for American independence. So you can see those, like, the same hero of America and the same hero of Poland, fighting for the same cause, which is independence. So when I'm looking at America, it's like America is getting born. How can you say it? Yeah, the birth of America, and then Poland is disappearing from the map. That's a huge symbolism for me as a Pole, that we just finish our existence on the map, and then America is growing, and there are some connectivities when it comes to those people like Tadeusz Kościuszko, those big fighters for independence. So that's one element. And then, another element is, President Wilson. Yeah, that's the president that we have in our memories, which means after 123 years, of not existence again, we just regain our independence as Poland. And there are 3, 4, or let's say 6 major leaders that they made it for us. But one of them, and one of the relationship we have, was Ignacy Jan Paderewski. That was a genius, artist, let's say piano player, and he was a very top-notch cultural figure, and he was a frequent traveler to the United States. And it turned out that he was a friend of your president, American President Wilson. And then when the war was close to be over in 1918, and so again, I repeat myself, 123 years of non-existence, then President Wilson, knowing Paderewski, knowing the spirit of Polish people, I hope he had this love for Poles and the Polish culture. He was just talking, I think, in January 1918 to the capital, and having this speech that he would love to regain and resurrect Poland and give them independence. So that was critical. So you have now Tadeusz Kościuszko, which is a hero of both countries. Then you have Wilson and the friendship with Polish cultural figure who was playing mainly Chopin. So it's another cultural element here. And then, of course, Piłsudski was there. But then moving forward after the Second World War, when we were introduced to an evil system of communism by Russian Empire, let's call it Soviet Union at that time, then of course there was a Cold War. You were engaged as an Americans, and then against the Soviet Union. And then coming back to Ronald Reagan, and I think John Paul II, and then Margaret Thatcher and Lech Wałęsa, those key figures are very close to Polish hearts. Why Ronald Reagan? Because he was able to, I think, communicate not only on a political and strength level, but also on a spiritual level, on a language level. It was a person of the word, like John Paul II, as we all know, he loved language. He was studying Polish language at the university. He was an actor. Now Ronald Reagan was an actor. So I think there was a lot of, they have a lot of in common. So they were able to communicate on a deeper level, and love for freedom that comes from the word. And we know from our faith, at the beginning there was a word, and I think it's a word-based universe, as some people are saying it recently. So I think they were able to meet at the level of understanding the beauty of the word and the freedom. So Yeah, Ronald Reagan, very close to my heart and to many people in Poland. So a lot of help from Americans, a lot of millions of dollars going to these underground organizations, a huge effort given by the Polish Church, Catholic Church, and of course, again, John Paul II. So I think this was an amazing relation, and those leaders made a big change. So yeah.
I sometimes think about this, Konrad. I shared this story actually when we interviewed Bobby,
Michał Łuczewski.
Michał Łuczewski recently, and I was sharing my own reflections from being a kid in the 1980s, and my father was a professor at a university, and then kind of late, before it was too late, but later than most people, became a United States naval officer, an intelligence officer. And I remember he used to tell me that when he was sort of coming up in academia, and then even in his early military career, there was this sense, even among the American leadership, that the Cold War would never end, that there would always be communism, and that we would always live in this kind of, this imperfect relationship, but we would just have to learn to live with it. That would just have to be the way that it was. And then my father used to tell me, then Reagan went to Berlin. And a lot had already happened by then, but he went to Berlin and he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Now, that had a certain resonance in America, to be sure, but I can only imagine, and I'm curious to ask someone like you, what that meant to Poles, what that meant to people who are living under communism, to have the leader of the free world, Ronald Reagan, come to Europe and to essentially say, we're going to defeat this thing. We're not going to let people continue to live under this system. Do you have a memory of that, or your parents or your family or people in your community just reflecting on that?
Yeah, I think it's a fundamental thing. And when you are in those kind of circumstances, surrounded by all this evil, and you don't know where to go because it's overwhelming. As in those times, you're living in a fabricated artificial building blocks, developed by it was like a social engineering thing in communist times. So you live in the buildings where the walls have ears, and then every other person could be a spy or working for the big party. And their main task was to hear and listen and find a way to bring it to the party, make sure that you follow the only one truth. So living in this kind of environment of a constant fear, knowing that probably, how can you really get out of this cage? How can you do it yourself? And now hearing that there is an external world, and I think the strongest at the time in our minds, the strongest empire, and its head, a president who is saying, yes, we will defeat it, and he is not afraid to tell it to the other leader, eye to eye in his face, you better tear this down. No, immediately your mindset, your understanding of the world, that you are not alone, change. So I think that was a cornerstone. That was a breakthrough, break-even point, whatever we call it, because suddenly, in addition to strength that you're gathering and the source of faith you have, so the strength in the Polish people were coming from the faith, from a gathering. If everybody is an evil, so you go to the church and you were praying together. You felt this unity. You were united because there is an evil, on every single corner. So you were having the strength from this trust, but in the practical terms, you were missing something. How practically it can fall down, how practically you can win. And I think that was a very important statement. Not only this one, but then seeing people cooperating, seeing him, Thatcher, John Paul, and others talking and trying to figure it out. What's the best possible way of making it work? That was amazing and very important. It changed the history for us, really.
Conrad, on that note, kind of you mentioned the church as being the place where people could gather and be united, but also the importance of the church in overcoming the communist, grip on society. Could you maybe say? I know we've talked before about figures like Father Popiełuszko, Cardinal Wyszynski, some of the other players who many Americans might not know much about. I remember we even were talking about this one movie that came out, I think when we met at O'Hare Airport that time, remember? And I watched on the plane the movie about that priest, I forget his name, who really helped organize in a very clever way, and a kind of unknown figure, at least unknown to me until I watched that film. So could you maybe say like a word about some of these figures that perhaps are not as well known, but were decisive in the overcoming of the communism within Poland?
Yeah. And I think it's again, what is helpful, and now looking, and I appreciate very much a Catholic faith there was and is in Poland. But at that time, I would say every single person was claiming I'm a Catholic. The churches were full of people, so you can understand that. But when you analyze also the deeper history, I will come back to your question, but deeper history of Poland, and you start from, let's say, from 1966, it's like baptism of Poland, yes? And then you learn, okay, there are some legends that even the name Poles, in Polish, the closest word would be Polani, Polani, which means the people who on whom you pour the water on, which is baptized. So from the very moment of our, let's say, creation of Poland as a country, many of us have this understanding that we were Polani, we were baptized, and that's our mission. And in the beginning, the start of the country was to evangelize the East, go and evangelize others. So we have this understanding, and when you look into the whole history of all these possible wars in Europe, and then just let's give 2-3 examples before I come to the modernity and modern life. I don't know, flood of Swedish Empire, yes, which was like 1655 or 50, 55, and they came to, and they flood the whole Poland, and we almost disappeared at that time. But then we believe, and there are also the legends that that the Virgin Mary saved Poland, and then King suddenly announced that the Virgin Mary is the Queen of Poland. There's also one historical event, I think in Neapol, one Jesuit, and I think in 1608, he heard the Virgin Mary talking to him and saying, look, don't you know I'm a Queen of Poland? This is the land that loves me. This is the land. These are the people that loves me. So from 1655, most of the Polish people believe that the Virgin Mary is our queen. So you can have this kind of a feeling. So in our history, in our blood, and in our minds, you have those kind of recognition for it. And then fast forward now to your question. Now, let's say, between the wars, you have the Saint Faustina. So we have this understanding of our saints, I think, Catholic saints, and they are giving us strength, which means whatever happened in the past, there were some reasons to believe that we will overcome it because of saints and because of miracles. So she met, she had her vision and encountering Jesus, and we all know about, the painting, we know all of those results. But now in 1920, we have this other miracle at the Vistula River. We're supposed to, disappear again. There was a Soviet invasion, huge battle. We were tiny, they were big. And then we also believe, that was a miracle. And if we were not, won that war, that probably this communism will flood the whole Europe, and it will, destroy those values that we all believe in. So you see those points in history for thousands of years, and that that we had problems, but we came out of those problems because of saints, because of our belief, because of those miracles. And then we are now in a reality of communism after the Second World War. And then you have those figures, like father figures from again, for the Catholic Church. And you mentioned Wyszynski, Prymas Wyszynski, yes, who, you know, in an most possible intelligent way, because those people are very intelligent as well. So I believe, you know, the wisdom of the Holy Spirit working through them. You know, he spent, you know, time in prison. So you can see the people who are suffering for you, for the nation. It's not in theory, it's not in a book, it's real time, it's happening. Those people are in the jail. Those people are prosecuted. So you can see them. Then you have Jerzy Popiełuszko, and these are my times, because it was, I think, 1986, and Jerzy Popiełuszko, and I was, I think, 13 years old. 4 + 3, yes, let's say 13. No, it was, I think 8. Let's say, 8 years old. Yeah, but look at what you know. What I remember? I remember lying in my bed, and my parents are listening to the radio and television. For the first time, myself, as a small boy, I was afraid. That was the first time in my life I was afraid. It was a huge fear. I was hearing they kidnapped a priest, and then they tortured him. They put ropes around his legs and hands, and they throw him into the lake, and they just found the body, and they started to discuss, and I was just hearing what's going on, why the people are dying. Yes, so you in the family, you start praying more and more, because all those families, this domestic church, we were praying every day. My mom was bringing us together. Before we go to bed, we were on our knees and praying rosary, and you were praying for those priests, and you were praying for the peace. And me, myself, I remember Jerzy Popiełuszko. I remember I was afraid. I was scared that they can just put me into the lake. That this is not anymore a joke. And when you're a small child, you don't know that communism is around you. Come on, you play with your friends. I was playing with my friends like 6 hours per day outside. This was the best life ever I could live. But there were moments that this deep reflection and this darkness were coming to my ears. And yes, that was Jerzy Popiełuszko. So I think what it gives to us, this realism of there are real heroes, there are real saints, and that's the moment. This is the moment that you can see them, you can touch them, you can be close to them, and yes, they were giving us strength and hope. That the word that you used at the beginning, yes, we were gaining a hope from Wyszynski, and then John Paul or Karol Wojtyła, blessed by him somehow, appointed, anointed by Wyszynski, and then you see all those saints like Maximilian Maria Kolbe from the Second World War. So you knew that the suffering is a property. The suffering is inevitable in our life, and you can see the suffering really firsthand. But in this case, it was because of fighting for the freedom, fighting for religious freedom, fighting for our families, and fighting for the truth. So a lot of memories you brought with your question.
Konrad, that I think is a good transition to talk a little bit about America, maybe, because I think it may be the case that a lot of us in America just take our freedom for granted because we haven't really experienced the kind of thing that you're talking about. And as I was reading through the first few chapters of your book, Escape from the American Cage, I was thinking of Alexander Solzhenitsyn a little bit. How he arrived in America, and he gives a speech. I think it was in 1975 at Harvard, and the essence of the speech is basically, you guys are wasting your freedom. Like, you're free, and this is what you're choosing to do with it. It's sort of, and he got criticized for that at the time, that he was sort of ungrateful to this, free country that let him come live there. But I think as the decades have gone on, it's proved really prophetic, what he had to say. So I'm not necessarily saying that's exactly what you're saying, but I do think that, there's something you're trying to convey in your book about encouraging your fellow Americans now to appreciate their freedom more. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that two elements to it, but I think 150% right. This is the observation and some kind of a warning side from the person who was able maybe to experience portion of the consequences of other systems and approaches. But that two elements, when I decided to write a book about America, and the book that you are referring to more focuses on the fruits that I observe. Yeah, of course, I analyze some of those. I should probably spend another 20 years of, historical root, causes and effects, etc., analyzing it deeper and deeper. But I decided to stay on the level of what I observe. By the fruits, you will know. But I came from the two possible, I would say, dimensions. One is what you just mentioned, freedom, and making sure that we have to fight for freedom continuously. That's one of the things. But the second is from my maybe life story and a life mission that I recognized years ago, which is love for people, loving people. So help them, give them support, give them hope, inspire to live more joyful life, and direct them into the truth and the love. This is my recognized and accepted vocation. So when I look first into the people, I already have certain reactions. So I would like to help somehow. And that's the result. The book is a result of this, let's say, how can we say it? Reaction. How can I help? So, yeah, what I observed, there's a lot of positives, and we had no chance to talk about it. Let's maybe have a loop. So I will just talk about those elements that are described immediately into the book. But then I would like to close with positive side. But what I first observed when I came here, with the freedom that is here already for so many years, I still observed, and I felt it. There is a certain level of fear in people, fear, and I was trying to analyze it. What is this fear? Where it is coming from? And of course, you quickly realize, coming from, let's say, today's Poland or today's Europe, there is a fear because of the news. You hear about gun violence on the streets. You drive your kids to school, and then they are welcomed by the policeman, which is not a common picture in, I would say, in Europe or in Poland. So you can see policemen in churches. You can see policemen in front of theaters. You can see policemen everywhere. And then you start to think, what's going on? Is there any civil war going on here? What's going on? And then you again hear the news. Of course, I don't want to mention obvious examples of, I don't know, school mass shootings, etc. I know it's when it happened, everybody is alert, everybody is thinking about it, but it's in a regular everyday life. You hear about it, that something happened on the street, that someone was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So there is certain fear in people that I'm sensing. Yeah, I don't want to go to root causes, etc. But just to give you a flavor of what I'm feeling when I just arrived, and I'm here already 7 years. So yes, everywhere police, and you hear about the shootings all the time. So that's one thing. And then also when you go even to the church or like community gatherings, you start hearing about drug abuse. You start hearing about this massive addiction patterns in America. Of course, I study this. I review the statistics and facts, etc. Try to compare countries, etc. To not just be taken by local impressions or local situations, but then when you start to study it, then you can see it is overwhelming. Something is really going on here. So it's a mass addictive society to some degree. It is. And then you study it further, and then you also hear, everybody knows here the person that was shot or that committed suicide. So the suicide topic is also common that you're hearing. And it's like, you ask the questions, what is going on? So then you have gun violence, you have a suicide ratio going up, then you have mass addiction going up. And so this is the environment. And then you have to switch off the radio. But if you even switch off the radio, you can still see it, and then you can hear about it in the communities that you are participating in. So yes, so there is something in the air, I would say. There are also other elements, but I think we may want to stop and maybe deep dive into one of those. But yes, there is an element of free speech, which is obviously a virtue. It's the strength of this country. But again, the question is, how far we can go with the freedom of speech, and then you just start to see the correlation. Okay, freedom of speech is a strength for this country, but at the same time, you look into human-to-human relationship or social connectedness, I would call it. You start to analyze, the level of loneliness, like 35-40% claim to be lonely in America, and again, just a bulb is lightning. Is it really true? When you start discussing with regular people, you notice, and coming from my culture here, is that the discussions and relationship are on a, I would say, quite a shallow level. So yes, usually it's a culture of sports, it's a culture of business, it's a culture of even mowing the grass. Yeah, but the level of discussions and the relationships are not going, let's say, too deeply. And if you don't have those deep relationships, if you don't have those discussions or over the serious matters in your life, then you can sense, there is it's a different strength of a social fabric than to the strength we have in Poland. So these are my reactions, and when I observe those in my real life, I said, okay, why should I study it more? How can I help the society to discover the depth and beauty of the relationships, and maybe those relationships will trigger decrease of loneliness or more joy, yeah, and they will open people to themselves, because when you sum it up, all of those access to guns and gun violence and the fear. And then when the people start, not having those deep relationships, this is my personal, feeling. People are afraid of each other on a depth, on a, let's say, on the heart level. You can be afraid of each other because there is no deep relationship. So, and then you can carry your gun, and there is this wonderful feature of the society of being kind at the first meeting, at the first encounter. This is beautiful. This is wonderful. But there is a level. If you exceed that level, you will see that there is an immediate, reaction of, there's some anger on a certain level, and then and then you can explode. And then the question is of this, how you would do it. Yeah, it is maybe hard to explain to the American. If I would be born here, probably I would not feel it. Yeah, but because I'm coming from a different reality, that's why in my title of the book, Escape from the American Cage, it's a mental cage. But it's exactly the same when I'm in Poland. I will encourage myself to escape from a Polish cage as well. So how to detect those differences, and maybe coming with this different background, different mindset, different spirit, I can sense it. But yes, this is maybe a very long response to your question. So, how can you see now this freedom? Is this freedom well used? I can say both. You can see that America is the strongest nation in the world. You can see America today is the most, I think, wealthiest country in the world, probably with like 25, maybe $1 trillion of GDP. You can see those elements. You can see very strong, I would say, private healthcare system. You can see this. You can see people who really flourish, having their own businesses, especially the top 20%. I think they own probably 80% of the wealth. You can see the effect of really strong capitalism. So for those people, so yes, there's a lot of good things that happen, and then all those wealth is bringing up step by step the whole society. You can see this, but in contrary, you also are asking yourself, and I'm asking myself, how did it happen? My response to it is because the country itself was founded on a good foundation. When you look into the Declaration of Independence, and I was just thinking myself, looking at those fruits, how should I compare? How should I dare even to compare to myself and to my country? So I decided, okay, is there any universal point of reference that I should take to start comparing what I'm seeing in America to these points of reference? And then I decided very quickly, okay, let's start with the Declaration of Independence, which is a document that outlined the ideal of this country, put it by the founding fathers. Of course, there's a constitution, which is a more practical document, how to set up government, etc. But this is a reference point I took in my book. At the same time, another reference point was it was built on a Christian foundations. And again, in the Declaration, you can see the Creator there, in reference to the Creator, and then everyone was created by the Creator, even equally. And then there are certain rights, inalienable rights. Yeah. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's good. And then I said, okay, let's look into it from more scientific lenses, and let's see how America today is fulfilling the promises of the Declaration. So I went through and I studied all the reports about happiness in the world, looking at statistics on happiness, on drugs usage, on gun violence, on elements of healthcare, life expectancy, etc., etc., etc. And then it turned out that what I sensed is somehow close to be right. America, that have an ambition to be the first in most of the things they're doing, is not the first. Yeah, it could be like 122nd in a change of happiness index. Why is 122nd? What's going on? Why they are not first? Why they're not in a top 20 of happiness index? Why those people are not happy having such a foundation, such a noble document as a declaration? So what is really going on here? So yes, I went through this whole journey and studied, and then I saw those patterns And what was my, let's say, final conclusion, and also coming from a Christianity and my also Catholic faith, and I added to my subtitle, and then you can read it here. So, Escape from the American Cage, that's the title. And I said, how to regain life, liberty, and happiness. But again, and gain truth, dignity, and love. So what I noticed is, slowly but surely, the modern culture that is flooding American society is step by step going away from truth, dignity, which means how we understand a human being and its nature, and the love, as I call it. And then I said to myself, look, if the Declaration of Independence, if I would be asked to rewrite it, or let's say rewrite one sentence, I would just add truth, dignity, and love as other inalienable rights, and having them, it can help to regain regain unity of the whole country. So yes, I can see this. A Christian foundation. Still, when you look into statistics, it's probably around 65-70% of Christians in America, and then you have probably 5 to 7% of, let's say, other religions, and then but you have 20-25 and growing, non-affiliated people, atheists, etc. And the new culture is using it, and leveraging those atheists, leveraging those who are probably lost somehow in terms of deeper values. And you can see this, how this phenomenon of going away from a Christian values is changing the America, and changing in a wrong way. So yes, I think it was probably too long of a description here, but
that was perfect, Konrad. I haven't really adding the truth, dignity, and love. That just your statement there, just to add that at the end, in some ways is it's in some ways that's the briefest and the most insightful line I've ever heard on how to actually properly refound the kind of the body politic of America. So anyways, that's very insightful of you. And it seems to me that it's basically exactly what your great, John Paul II would often say to Americans as well, is all these things that you outline. When he comes to America, he has great respect and admiration for this country, but he always adds those elements as only the truth will set you free, and your ultimate purpose is to love God and neighbor, and also the dignity of the human being, every human being, as a great reminder, and also in some ways the great cure for perhaps the sickness that he also discovered here.
Yes, and it's true. Yeah, so it's this the freedom that we start. And you was asking about the freedom. How do you see it coming from Poland? Now, the freedom, and let's start with the beginning. You have this, foundations, and in those foundations you can see, all those rights, and you can see Creator. And then you build on top of that. And of course, you have, First Amendment, Second Amendment, instead of First Amendment, mainly, freedom of speech. So freedom everywhere. So Americans love their freedom. Now, this freedom, maybe unconsciously, let's say unconsciously at the very beginning, because you have this strong foundations. You are so close to founding fathers and the ethos of being embedded in the freedom, but this freedom was rooted in Christianity and values, in Christian values. Now, longer you go and you start to forgetting about Christian values, you are left out with the freedom. Yes, this is good with the freedom, but there is no freedom without responsibility, as we know. There is no freedom without the reference of the higher values or true structure of the world, how the world is really structured. You cannot operate without the boundaries of ethics. You cannot operate without the boundaries of this nature of the world. And the question is, what is this nature of the world? Even, because, we are in a Judeo-Christian context here, but even if you have those, old ancient stories about, Jews leaving and searching for their paradise, promised land, you remember that at the beginning, they were under, look at that. And in Poland, I can see this because, there is a loop. Poland has to learn. We are all shifted in time, but let's assume, so you are in an early, living in Judah, and then you have this kind of, you're living as a slave, slavery. There is a bigger empire that set up the rules for you, so you live within those rules and constraints, and suddenly you have a chance to go and free yourself. And they got these chains, yeah. So they went to the desert. Now, when you studied it very, deeply, they got these chains, but then suddenly they discovered themselves in a pure, fullest freedom, and they start to what? Flourish? No, they were not flourishing. That's the unbelievable phenomenon. So the conflict started. The other, let's say, gods started to appear. So other conflicting ideas, and very soon the whole organization and the whole nation and all the people, found themselves, we are not anymore united. Yes, so we are, we even are able to substitute and replace the God we have with something that is artificial. Yeah, so because we, instead of having the foundational rules that rules us, we just start to develop ours. So what I'm looking at now, being 250 years, let's say, after the declaration, all those generations that remember, it's like generations that remember Jesus, generations that remember Abraham, generations that remember founding fathers, and they are not continuing their faith, yes, they are just now like at the desert. Everything is possible. I can do whatever I want. I can make a new definition of a human being. I can make it. Yes, it's like, let's think about it. It's a lot of scientism. Yes, everybody, fell in love with scientism. Why? Because we need a reference point. We need a vision. We need someone to tell us what can be, sense of my life. So if someone is telling me, let's develop an artificial life, yeah, we can do it. We have AI. We can go to the brain. We can maybe download the brain. So maybe we can, chase for eternal life. So human beings maybe can do it. So we don't need God. Okay. Or maybe, I feel today a different person that I was when I was born. So maybe let's form a regulation around it. Let's fight for that. It's a noble cause in my eyes. So now you have this kind of movement of millions of ideas, trying to establish their own truth. And those truths will sooner or later will be in conflict with themselves. Yeah, they will be, because, if every human being can define and establish his own truth, of course, at the back of it, it will be your own need first. You like to satisfy your own needs and your own feelings. It will be always designed like that. So if I have a different needs and different, understanding of a pleasure, or different understanding of my family, different understanding of my future, and you have a different one, then there will be a collision. And we can observe this. Yeah, we can observe this polarization. And now in America is skyrocketing. Why? I think America start leading this. Why? Because of what I already mentioned, the relationship with people without internet was already, to my taste, on a how you call it, superficial level, on a non too deep level. In the families, yes, but between people, between the families, within the communities, on a quite shallow level. Then on top of it, you give them a tool or toy, which is a social media, which is communication platform that you can say whatever you want. So now I'm an American, finally. I can say whatever I want. It's a full freedom. Behind the, I can be behind the screen if I don't have a reference to the Declaration. Let's forget about deep religion. If I don't have a reference, if I don't really understand what it says there about the one that created it all, and he really rules, he set up the goals. If I don't have this reference, if I already, I was not taught, because I don't think it's the fault of a young generation. They were not taught. It's a fault of my generation, yes? And so I don't have this reference. So, okay, I'm free to act. Let's show this is a freedom of speech. So you can tell anything you want. And now in internet, with those algorithms, the algorithms are like forming a look-alike communities. If I'm pro this, then algorithm will bring the people who are like this, which means I will have this kind of fake understanding of reality, believing, wow, yes, my idea is followed by millions of people. So that's the right idea. So that's why what we can observe now, it's a full freedom, something that is unbelievably strong and should be followed by all the countries on earth, like Poland. We were fighting for it. We were praying, we were dreaming about a freedom. Now you have this kind of a freedom in America, and you observe a tendency that farther you go, I'm repeating myself, I know, farther you go from a founding fathers or the Declaration ideal, in our term, go more far away from the reality, real reality or true reality of created universe, then you are creating multiple countries, multiple Americas within one America, which means it may not be soon the United States of America. That's why in my book I was just saying, wow, why shall we have an ambition to recreate a united societies? Okay, it's not states, start with the societies of America. Let's start to be united. How can we be united? We have to refer back to one truth. And because you have to start with foundation. If their foundation is different, you will never come to the one truth and united country. You will never do it. This is not possible. Theoretically, it's not possible. Some people believe, although, sorry, it's so long. Some people believe that it can be united by capital. Yes, and I think it's very deeply rooted in America, very deeply. When you talk with people who are very wealthy, and I was sending the book and asking them, can you challenge my point of view? I think in most of the cases, they don't like my statements. In most of the cases, they said, no, it's if you are not happy, if you are not wealthy, it's your fault. This is common, really common. If you are not doing right in this country, it's your fault. Yeah, it's a free country. You better educate yourself, work like crazy hard, and you will gain it. You will have money. Then with the money, you will set up your happiness. Because when I look into the Declaration and this pursuit of happiness, I still think that it's closer to the more English and the European founding fathers. Is probably pursuit of property. It's more about property than really happiness. For me, happiness is joyfulness. It's a different types of happiness. It's a happiness on the level of peace and joy, and then you feel that your life has sense and meaning, and deeper sense and meaning, that you have a connectivity with the people, that you know what's the noble cause, what's the noble vision of life. So here, I think in the Declaration is more about property. It was changed maybe last minute into happiness, but yes, this is in a short sentence, probably not short. how I feel, where we are with the understanding and where it is going. Now, should I be pessimistic? The history, forgetting about the atomic bomb and what is going on the tensions, geopolitical situation. Let's forget about this for a moment, which you cannot, because it's all interconnected. These are the all connected systems. And some behavior of America is connected to being a global power. It is. So don't get me wrong. It's so complicated. But when you look into this whole situation and saying, so is this end of the America, end of the earth? I doubt. Yeah. Even tiny amount of devout Christians, believers, those who are given the truth, because this truth will never be cancelled on the earth. That's my belief. And it's, of course, rooted in my faith. But if we still have a group of core believers, it can be done, because we know there were 12 disciples and it can be done. So young generation, you observe, they are sooner or later realize absurd of the situation of having or live in a full freedom. Why? Because they already see the consequences. When I look into my daughter, she's 16, when I look into the faces of those young people, they're already noticing something is missing in my life. I cannot really form closer relationships. I try to do something, but they just immediately go to sports. They immediately change topic. They just go into the, smartphone. Something is going wrong. So you can see the longing and desire of young people, young souls, young spirits. There is something there more deeper in the reality. So as long as a new generation will be born, there is hope. Yeah, there's hope. Now the question is, who will tell them about the truth in a way that they will believe? And I still believe that it's also not only on us, but there is a Holy Spirit that is always with us forever. But it's a battle. It's a battle. It's not that we should sit and watch. It's if you want to really live your full life, it's just probably I will repeat Jordan Peterson. He's just talking and talking and talking to the young people, or continuously and all the time. Just go and have an adventure. Adventure will be painful. Suffering is inevitable, but then you will really experience your life to its fullness. So yes, there is a longing in the young generation. They would like to live their life in a different way. If you start living on a shallow level, on a pleasure level, they will soon discover that many people will end up very wrong. They will die from an overdose. 70,000 young people just die in this 12-month period of time in America. Yes, it's like it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. It shows me that the pleasure is taking over the true definition of happiness. Yes, I believe we can be happy and joyful on earth. Yeah, but it's a different definition of happiness. Mm-hmm. It's a happiness and joyfulness coming from freedom embedded in a true responsibility. And this responsibility, when I decide I'm responsible for my family, I keep them as long as possible together. When I feel I'm responsible for the community, for my friendship, I keep them. I switch off the phone. I go, I meet with them in a restaurant. I'm talking with them. I'm investing in it. So if you start doing this, you will start a different type of a journey, and your life will have a different quality. And I think young generation, they discover it. You can cheat them for a minute, unless you will brainwash them. If you brainwash them, they will start to operate within the framework of a different parallel reality, which is not a true reality. And then by the fruits you will see, coming to the beginning, by the fruits you will see. So, yeah, too much words, I would say.
No, that's all great. And
it's so many years, and I can talk to someone now about it. That's cool.
It's really enlightening, honestly. And you've brought us to the place that we always, in a sense, want to end with, which is hope. Our project is called the Spe Salvi Institute. We're named after the great encyclical by Pope Benedict XVI, Saved in Hope. One quick comment for me, and then maybe Bobby, you have a final question. But I want to back up, just jump back one or two points to just note something that struck me, and I'm grateful for that you made this point, Konrad. And it's this issue of fear and love. I was thinking about, as you were talking, I was thinking about how in the first letter of St. John, John says there is no room for fear in love. That really is the thing that gets in the way of authentic charity, right? And you were talking about how we're afraid of each other in America because of violence, maybe because we're afraid of offending people's differing viewpoints, right? We just sort of have this, because truth is so fragmented, we're sort of afraid of each other. But I have discovered that this is really the case, and this has changed just in my lifetime. Even you've alluded to this, and I think you talk about it a little more in the book, but the way that our interpersonal relationships work now is very strange. We're afraid not only of maybe others' violence or offending other people, but we're strangely afraid of inconveniencing people. It's so weird. I mean, we don't drop in on each other. We don't I have a feeling that if one of my neighbors experienced a catastrophic flood, they would go stay in a hotel rather than walk across the street and ask if they could sleep on my floor, which is bizarre. We're neighbors. Of course I would want, we should be looking out for each other in that way. And I think that, when, as you were talking, it just occurred to me that we're afraid of each other, even in this kind of neighborly way. And I think that's something we need to get past. So that's just a little comment. I don't know if you have a further comment, Bobby, maybe you have a final question.
No, I think that's so true. I mean, I went, we mentioned Michał Łuczewski earlier, but I was part of the conference and workshops was part of this Presencing Institute. And one of the workshops was actually, I thought it was silly at first, but it turned out to be very, very helpful. And also I learned a lot from it. Was we had to actually find a group of 4 people, and one person had to look at 3 people in the eyes, just stand there in silence for like several minutes, just looking at each other in their eyes. And it was incredibly interesting how just being present to another, I noticed in myself this fear and this a fright and flight motion kicked in. And almost in a lot of my interactions in America, I've always had that, where it's like, okay, just survive the conversation, and don't bring up so many topics that perhaps might get you into big trouble. But in Poland, it's really interesting. I've noticed the difference, since I've been married, to Magdalena and a Pole. It's interesting how Poles will oftentimes, they won't be afraid to bring up some topics, and the conversation will just sit there. And I don't feel like they're trying to get out of it, but they're waiting for my response. So anyways, I think that's really insightful, Konrad, and particularly as somebody who's coming from, outside of America, to see that within us, it's extremely helpful to me to just notice it first. So
yeah. One last, if you have one last question,
yes,
I can comment on that. And let's maybe finish on a positive note.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that, Konrad? Yeah, any sort of final comments and leave us on a positive.
Good. So one thing, positive note in a second. One, to refer. So what's the grounding force? Because I would never dare to blame any Americans for their behavior. Why? I'm just explain why. Because the culture is wired like that. The systems, the norms, everything that was shaped for all those hundreds of years are just producing those behaviors. Yeah. So, for instance, it is a high individualism, promoted in America. High individualism. very high individualism, versus, let's say, talking about solidarity among the people. What is it? What is solidarity? How can we do it, let's say, together and for others? Now, but this individualism, like fueled by the self-made American dream mentality, which means you are the one who is in control of your life. Yeah? So it's, again, I will repeat myself. If you are not successful, it means it's your fault. Yes. Or it's a shame, coming back to you, Andrew, it's a shame to ask for help. So it's not a bad will. It's nothing in the spirit of those people, those hearts, everybody created in the image of God. So you have wonderful hearts. You have a conscience there. There are certain norms that are far further powerful than even the Christian culture, more powerful, which means loving freedom. It's a loving freedom economy, a loving freedom society, rather than loving human beings society. It is loving human being, but the first reaction when you wake up in the middle of the night, it's loving freedom, individual freedom. So it's like American dream, self-made reality. Yeah. So, and what is it? It's people are really trapped and captivated by the adopted vision of the world and social order. Yeah. So it's they are not asking for help because it's a shame. I should do it myself. Yeah. And there are positives. There's a huge positive aspect of it. You're growing. Every third person is an entrepreneur here. I love it. I was dreaming about that. I was doing innovations in my life. I was trying to achieve also certain elements of having your own company and grow and have more money, etc. This can be done here. Yeah, this can be done here. So this is probably to reflect on that. I don't think it's a result of how it is designed and structured. But now, on a positive note, when you would ask me, and when we started our discussion, and I think, maybe I'm glad that we didn't start from this, but you said, so are you really in love in America? And I remember this question. There was a recent interview between Ramaswamy, so you have another candidate for the presidency, talking with a journalist from UK, and the journalist was saying, yes, I think I love America. And Ramaswamy, he said, are you really? Do you really love America? You really? With all its colors? Bearing arms. Yes, we bear arms. We will keep them. There is a inbuilt risk that we accept that there will be a gun violence on the street. Do you still love America? This is what we believe. It's the Second Amendment. You have it. Self-defense. Of course, originally it was, militia, and then it was defend against bad governments, and then it was self-defense, and then it was I having it to protect my family. But why children are learned at school that you have to protect your family against other families? So coming back, it's like it's a circle. But major politicians in the country are saying, yes, do you love America? Really? Do you love America? So face the truth. The America is the Second Amendment as well. So do you still love it? So it's a hard question to respond. It's a hard question to respond. And some people will say, oh, yeah, with his guns, yeah. Maybe it's steered by the big, probably 70 or $80 billion industry. Yes, maybe it is, but it's there. So freedom of speech. We can talk about anything we want. Do you still love America? Yeah, because we will be talking about different religions. We will be talking about the topics you don't like. We will be talking to your children also, through the mass media or social media. And do you still want to live in this country? So I remember this conversation, and it shows me that it's not so easy to love America, and you really have to decide love all those aspects, but in a positive sense. To me, nothing happened to me as of now. I'm here 7 years with my whole family. When I go to the streets, when I meet Americans, when I go to my church, to St. Michael's the Archangel parish here, Catholic parish, when I meet those people, I'm experienced. Let's start from a human to human relationships. I'm experienced unbelievable kindness at the first brief encounter. Unbelievable kindness, and we know about it in Poland. We tend to laugh about it. Oh, you meet American, he's always smiling, always kind, etc. Is this true? Is this real, or they pretending? I'm saying also to my fellows in Poland, it is true. Kids are taught to be like that here. I'm talking about now Kansas. I visited most of the places in America, but I didn't live there. So I think the disclaimer should be, I'm now describing the environment I'm living today. There are so many things going on in America. You can be in a Barbie's community, yeah, Barbie world community, wealthy people, everything wonderful, green is grass, well cut, and everybody, happy and smiling. You can just go for 10 miles and then you see the area that was hit by, you think it was hit by a tornado, or it's just a result of a tiny, small war, what's going on. So you can, but I'm talking about my closest circle here. So kindness, you meet children with good manners. I would love Poland have it. I remember me being taught by my parents, my grandparents, good manners. Those children are saying, excuse me, all the time, thank you, please. They are smiling, they are nice. I never saw children being not respectful to their teachers, or yelling at parents, yelling at teacher. Nothing, zero. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable patriotism. Unbelievable patriotism. So you go to we went to circus 2 weeks ago, and you stand up and you sing, and there's an anthem, and there's a flag, and there's always a veteran coming. You go to any game, to college game, to school game, to kindergarten game, to kindergarten play, to the show, to the theater. You sing it, you take care. It's in people's mindset, thoughts, and you care. So there's an admiration for their country, which I like, because my family was seeding this in my life. And then it was a lot of discussion about history, a lot of topics about patriotism, how to do it. I love 4th of July. I love Memorial Day. I love Veterans Day. I love those, coming to love for America. There's a huge culture here. It's overwhelming. It's different. It's a different level than comparing to Poland. It's on a totally different level. It's unbelievable depth. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's just hope that these things that you appreciate about America will live on. I certainly hope so too. I'm raising my family here in my country, in the United States, and many of the things that you've singled out are things that I'm proud of too. So, Konrad Milewski, we are so grateful that you were able to take the time to join us today. Your book is called Escape from the American Cage: How to Regain Life, Liberty, Happiness, and Gain Truth, Dignity, and Love. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. To our listeners and viewers, if you have enjoyed what you've heard here, please don't forget to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, share this episode with friends, and tune in next time for more great content. Check out our website, spacesalviinstitute.com, to sign up for our email list so you don't miss anything new. Until next time, God bless and live in hope.